Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you are here to learn with us today. Today, we're diving into a story about a woman's courageous journey to find healing and peace. You will find out about the challenges she faces with her family's beliefs and how she learns to stand up for herself. This story explores themes of inner strength, self-care, and the complicated ways that families show their love. Before we dive in, if you enjoy our stories and want to support what we do, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and consider buying us a coffee on Ko-fi. There's a link in the description below. Every like, subscription, and small contribution helps us keep creating great content for English learners like you. Let's get started. The Capsule Between Generations. Julietta Campbell, a graphic designer whose creativity was once her greatest asset, now found herself imprisoned by a relentless, crippling anxiety. Every day was a battle against a tide of irrational fears and a racing heart. Her parents, Edilberto and Sharon, were well-meaning but misguided, firm believers in the power of holistic remedies and deeply suspicious of modern medicine. They saw her anxiety not as a medical condition, but as a failure of will, a weakness that could be overcome with mindfulness and herbal teas. Their constant barrage of articles on the dangers of pharmaceuticals and the virtues of a natural lifestyle only served to amplify Julietta's anxiety, creating a suffocating atmosphere of disapproval. It was a conundrum she couldn't solve. Their love was intertwined with a judgment that was slowly eroding her sense of self. Her younger brother, Mandeep, was a lone voice of support, but his life was a whirlwind of diapers and sleepless nights, his own anxieties swirling around the new life he and his wife had brought into the world. Julietta's work, once a source of joy and fulfillment, had become a source of dread. Her social life, once vibrant and full, had dwindled to a few loyal friends who tried and failed to understand the invisible war she was waging within herself. She felt like a ghost in her own life, a pale imitation of the woman she used to be. The stigma surrounding mental health was a heavy cloak she wore every day, a constant reminder of the shame and secrecy that surrounded her struggle. The breaking point came during a high-stakes presentation at her firm, Alquilanda Digital. As she stood before her colleagues, the carefully prepared slides on the screen blurred into an incomprehensible mess. The room seemed to shrink, the air growing thick and heavy. A wave of panic washed over her, cold and suffocating. Her voice, when she finally managed to speak, was a trembling whisper. She fumbled through her presentation, her words a jumble of disconnected thoughts, before fleeing the room in a state of utter humiliation. The memory of her colleagues' pitying glances and her boss's concerned but disappointed expression was a fresh wound, a stark reminder of how far she had fallen. This public breakdown, this raw and unfiltered display of her vulnerability, became the catalyst for change. It was a painful and humiliating experience, but it was also a moment of clarity. She could no longer deny the severity of her anxiety, nor could she continue to placate her parents with their ineffective remedies. It was time to take control of her own life, to seek help on her own terms, regardless of the stigma or the disapproval of those she loved. In an act of quiet rebellion, Julietta scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist, Dr. Rita Putri. The decision was a monumental step, a declaration of independence from the well-meaning but ultimately harmful beliefs of her parents. Dr. Putri's office was a sanctuary, a calm and welcoming space that stood in stark contrast to the tense and judgmental atmosphere of her family home. For the first time in a long time, Julietta felt seen and heard. Dr. Putri listened with a gentle and non-judgmental ear as Julietta poured out her fears and frustrations, her words a torrent of pent-up emotions. She explained the science behind antidepressants, demystifying the process and addressing Giulietta's concerns about side effects and dependency. Giulietta left the appointment with a prescription in her hand and a glimmer of hope in her heart. But the hope was tinged with a heavy weight of guilt and apprehension. She knew that this decision would create a rift between her and her parents, a divide that might never be fully bridged. The medication, a small, unassuming capsule, felt like a panacea, a potential cure for the ailment that had plagued her for so long. Yet, she knew it was not a magic bullet, but a tool, a means to an end. The real work, the hard work of healing, was just beginning. Giulietta confided in Mandeep, her brother, her ally. He listened without judgment, his own exhaustion momentarily forgotten as he offered his unwavering support. He spoke of his own struggles with postpartum anxiety, the overwhelming fear and worry that had consumed him in the first few months of his child's life. It was a revelation, a shared vulnerability that created a new and unexpected bond between them. He became her confidant, a safe harbor in the storm of her parents' disapproval. The first few weeks on the medication were a roller coaster of side effects. Nausea, fatigue, and a persistent headache became her constant companions. Her parents, ever watchful, saw these symptoms as proof of the drug's toxicity, a validation of their long-held beliefs. They intensified their campaign of natural remedies, leaving articles on her pillow and forwarding her links to anti-medication blogs. Their disapproval was a constant, low-grade hum in the background of her life, a reminder of the rift that was growing between them. But Giulietta persevered, her resolve strengthened by her brother's support and the quiet hope that flickered within her. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the medication began to work. The constant hum of anxiety in her mind began to quiet, replaced by a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in years. The world, once a terrifying and overwhelming place, began to seem a little less daunting. She found herself able to focus on her work with a clarity and creativity that had long been absent. The panacea she had hoped for was not a cure-all, but it was a start, a foundation upon which she could begin to rebuild her life. As the fog of anxiety began to lift, Giulietta's confidence blossomed. She started taking on more challenging projects at work. Her creativity, once stifled by fear, now flowing freely. She reconnected with friends, rediscovering the simple joy of laughter and conversation. She even started dating, a prospect that had once seemed impossible. Her newfound independence and happiness did not go unnoticed by her parents. They saw her transformation not as a sign of healing, but as a dangerous reliance on a crutch, a chemical solution to a spiritual problem. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for months finally boiled over during a family dinner. Her parents, their faces etched with concern and disapproval, accused her of taking the easy way out, of ignoring their advice and disrespecting their values. The conundrum of their love and judgment was laid bare on the dinner table. But Giulietta, no longer the timid and anxious woman she once was, refused to be silenced. She stood up for herself, her voice calm and steady. She explained her decision, articulating the profound and positive impact the medication had had on her life. She spoke of her love and respect for them, but also of her need to make her own choices, to forge her own path to healing. The roller coaster of her emotions, the ups and downs of her journey, had led her to this moment of clarity and strength. The annual family vacation, a trip to a remote cabin nestled deep in the woods, became the ultimate test of Giulietta's progress. The trip was a pressure cooker of unspoken tensions, her parents' disapproval a palpable presence in the small enclosed space. The isolated setting, far from the distractions of everyday life, amplified the emotional stakes. One evening, as if on cue, a fierce storm rolled in, the wind howling and the rain lashing against the windows. The power went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. The storm, a mirror of the turmoil within her, triggered a panic attack. But this time, it was different. Instead of succumbing to the fear, she reached for the tools she had learned in therapy. She focused on her breathing, grounding herself in the present moment. She reached for her medication, her hand steady and sure. Her parents watched, their expressions a mixture of fear and concern. As the storm raged outside, Julieta calmly explained what was happening, demystifying the experience for them. She spoke of her anxiety not as a weakness, but as a medical condition, a chemical imbalance in her brain. Her vulnerability, her raw and honest confession, became a bridge across the generational divide. In that moment, in the flickering candlelight of the storm-tossed cabin, a shift occurred. The imminent threat of the storm, the shared experience of being trapped together, created a space for a new kind of understanding. The imminent danger had, in a strange way, brought them closer. The storm passed, leaving a quiet stillness in its wake. The next morning, the sun streamed through the cabin windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The family sat down for breakfast, the atmosphere still fragile, but with a new undercurrent of respect. Edilberto, in a rare moment of vulnerability, admitted that he didn't understand her anxiety, but he saw her strength. Sharon, her voice soft, acknowledged the positive changes she had seen in her daughter. It wasn't a full acceptance, but it was a start, a fragile truce in their long-standing conflict. Back home, Julieta continued to thrive. She excelled at work, her creativity and confidence earning her a promotion. Her relationship with her parents remained complex, a work in progress, but there was a newfound honesty and openness between them. They might never fully understand her choice, but they were beginning to respect it. Mandeep remained her steadfast ally, their shared experience a source of strength and connection. The repercussions of her decision, once a source of fear and anxiety, were now a testament to her courage. The repercussions of her parents' initial disapproval were slowly being replaced by a grudging acceptance. Months later, Julieta was a woman transformed. The anxiety that had once defined her was now a manageable part of her life, a shadow that no longer held power over her. She was confident, happy, and in control. The capsule, once a symbol of her struggle, was now a testament to her resilience, a reminder of the courage it took to choose her own path to healing. She had not only healed herself, but had also begun to heal the generational divide in her family, opening the door for a more honest and compassionate understanding of mental health. The story ends with Julieta looking at her reflection in the mirror, a quiet smile on her face. She was finally at peace with herself, with her choices, with the woman she had become. The journey had been long and arduous, but she had emerged from the darkness, stronger and more whole than she had ever been before. The ubiquitous nature of mental health struggles, once a source of shame, was now a point of connection, a shared human experience that transcended generations. The ubiquitous presence of love in her family, once a source of conflict, was now a source of strength. That's the end of our story for today. It is a powerful story about finding your own way to be happy and healthy. We would love to hear from you in the comments. What is one thing that helps you feel strong and brave in your own life? If you enjoyed the story, please show your support with a like. And don't forget to look in the description box below for helpful materials to keep practicing. Thank you for joining us at the English Story Nook. We hope you feel inspired and a little more confident in your English. Keep learning, stay positive, and we will see you in the next story. Goodbye for now.